We are joined now by Kevin Sjuts from 1011 in Lincoln. What's going on, Kev?
Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you boys.
Kevin, how are we doing? But you had the double dipping, right? We had JB and a couple of the players talk yesterday, and then you had to hop over to Haymarket with the game time change. Did that monkey wrench anything for you, or did you kind of have a good feel?
I was already ready for a busy Tuesday. So it's all about mental preparation, On the weekend, as you look at the week, you're like, it's a little front loaded. It's going to be nice on the backside. And hey, we get to catch a little extra Nebraska basketball, a bonus day today. And then, man, if they can get past Georgetown, see even more of Fred Hoiberg's team this weekend.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So are you prepared? Like, what will you guys do if they get by? And I was shocked. I told Ravi this morning, I was surprised to see Nebraska a 7.5-point fave. They're expected to win. Does it change your coverage if Nebraska gets past this one in the Crown?
It could potentially, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a wait and see thing. That's been the case with this team the entire year, just because they've been so up and down, But it would not shock me, and you can hear all the fans saying it would be the most Nebraska basketball thing ever, right? The fact that they faded in the regular season, didn't make the Big Ten tournament, but there exists a world in which it makes total sense that Nebraska wins this entire tournament. Yeah. And if you look at the field that's left,
Boise's the best team left, I think, in my opinion.
I totally agree with that. I thought they should have been in the NCAA tournament.
That's what Ravi said.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty balanced. They're pretty scrappy on defense too. And that would be Nebraska's most likely opponent in the next round if they get past tonight. But I'm even surprised that Nebraska's 7.5 over Georgetown.
That's a lot, isn't it?
It's going to be a good game.
Yeah,
it is. It is, especially on a neutral site game like that. I think Nebraska's the better team, to be 100% honest with you. But I think there's a lot of similarities between the Huskers and the Hoyas, just that their ceiling's pretty high, but you've also seen some low out of the team. And, there's some fascination with watching basketball on April 2nd. The first time Nebraska's ever played a basketball game in the month of April.
Yeah.
Hey, baby steps, right?
How do you think they spend the money? Is that – nobody's really been specific with what happens? I'm sure TD Dannon's got to get the cut for the department, but is that basketball budget money, do you think?
I've been very fascinated by that too. Like, where does the money go? Does it go to players? I know because
some of it does.
Some of it does.
Yeah, I think some of it does.
It has to.
Yeah,
and they've even claimed that this is like a part NIL initiative of putting on this tournament. But I mean, like, where does it go? Players, program. Do the coaches get a cut? Do the administrators get a cut? I don't know. And I guess we'll talk about that when it actually happens. No matter who wins it, I'm curious how they're going to spend it. And then you talk about the momentum of the Crown and what the future of this tournament could be. If you listen back to Hoiberg praising the tournament at the beginning when they accepted the invitation, he was very complimentary of this first-time 16-team tournament at one site. And for me, I was a little caught off guard by that. Of course, he wants to make it a good experience and, paint the narrative for the fans and for his team and anybody else that follows his program that they're excited to play in this. But I think that there is some tangible, like the fact that there's money coming out of it. Yeah, it could bury the NIT.
I'm glad to see that's my number one thing about you, just the authenticity. Because when he said that, if it was anybody but Coach Hoiberg, I probably would have rolled my eyes. But him being very candid about that, I'm exactly with you. It caught me off guard, Kevin. But then I remembered, I'm like, well, this Coach Hoiberg, he's not going to probably blow smoke. Maybe he's already fast forwarding to the benefits.
Yeah, it could be. And plus, he's just generally a pretty positive person.
Good point. Good point.
But still, sometimes your dauber goes up, and you're like, that's just coach speak. I can see through that. I don't know, like, how real. But with Fred, I really felt like, no. And he truly, and this is one thing that I think some people have rolled their eyes to, he has said he really enjoys this team. These last 2 years have been some of his most enjoyable years in coaching. And I think there is some real truth to that. because you think about the roster construction for Nebraska basketball the last 2 years, it has not been easy. And even before this 2-year period, when they went out and got Juwan and they went out and got Bryce, they felt like they could be really good players. Well, they've turned out to be excellent players, and there's just something about the chemistry of these two teams that's been really special. And I don't think Fred wanted the season to end, and I think he'd really like a few more days, even beyond today, if that can happen and they win against Georgetown tonight in Las Vegas.
Kevin, let's switch gears here to baseball. Obviously, Nebraska fell to Creighton yesterday down in Lincoln, coming off that big series win against Oregon State. Do you feel like that scuttles the momentum a little bit, or different feel because it's a midweek game as opposed to a weekend series?
Yeah, it does scuttle some momentum because, man, that felt so good this weekend, especially the nature in which Nebraska won on Sunday. You know, all the runs they scored with 2 outs in the 7th inning, like that felt good for the players, for the coaches, for the fans. And then 48 hours later, you're scratching your head because they continuously like played this back and forth thing with Creighton, and they didn't come up with plays late in the game. So some of the good vibes have gone away. The way to get them back, and it's still, you know, it's April. There's plenty of season left ahead. But Nebraska's painted itself into this position that they need to win series. And this weekend, guys, I'm telling you, it may be the most important series of the entire season. They're at home. They have some momentum off of what happened last week against Oregon State. If you drop the home series against Rutgers, man, it is an uphill climb just to get into Big Ten contention and make the conference tournament. If you win this weekend, let's say you maybe even sweep it, now you've created a scenario in which you really feel like you have momentum. You've probably figured some things out from a personnel standpoint and from a lineup standpoint. So I think that these upcoming 3 games are massive for Nebraska.
Yeah, we were talking to Evan Bland yesterday, and he brought up an interesting thing that quietly Rutgers has been a little bit of a thorn in the side for Nebraska the last handful of years, keeping them out of the tournament a couple of years ago, and it hasn't been easy. So I don't think it'll be very hard for Nebraska to get dialed, but were you surprised yesterday that it was kind of pitching that let Nebraska down and not necessarily the bats?
Yeah, I mean the starting pitching was really bad. What four walks I think in the first 2 innings.
Any problems with the selection?
I don't get me going on this. I just don't like. I don't like a game that means a lot to a lot of people, and you don't throw a top dog.
Yeah,
like that really bothers me. But I understand that's not just a Nebraska thing. That's a college baseball thing, and those midweek games are sometimes developmental games. And if you look at some of the guys Nebraska trotted out there in the middle of the game, they're young arms. So, like, I kind of get it. They need to play at some point in time. I just don't. This Creighton game, everybody knows the series. It's a big series, right? But they don't pitch it like it's a big series, and that's what I think that the thing that bothers me with it. I'm not asking them to throw Will Walsh. I'm not asking them to bring in Brockett for those games. I understand that. Like,
did you think we were going to see Yasa?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I really did. I mean, yeah. And they have Omaha tonight too, so you gotta not only figure out who's pitching against Creighton, you got to lay out the 5 games that are this on the schedule: Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Knowing that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, frankly, are the most important games of the week.
Kevin, I do, it's funny you brought up Jackson Brockett there because, ironically enough, midweek series last year is sort of where Jackson Brockett got going a little bit. Do you think part of your frustration with the midweek starters and pitchers is just that more of those guys haven't turned into better or more consistent pitchers?
Yeah, that's what separates really elite teams in college baseball. You can have 100%. Your Friday, Saturday, Sunday guys, and then you go through Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, and you've got 4 and 5. That's very Major League Baseball-ish, that there's no game where it's a throwaway game where you're just hoping to get out of the 4th inning with your guy. But you also have to balance, like, giving some of those younger guys. That's where it would do Nebraska wonders if one of the freshmen or one of the sophomores on the team would just go take that position. And if you think back to like Nebraska's best teams, you know, they had studs on the weekend, but they could run through a Tuesday, Wednesday game and have a really, really good dynamic guy on the mound. It's kind of what Johnny Dorn did to start his career.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the weekend.
That's how he made a
rotation.
living. Yep.
He was really good, and you could pitch him into the seventh inning. And that, I think, really paid off for him as he transitioned later in his career to pitching on Nebraska's Friday and Saturday games.
Kev, let me get you out on this. You know, Creighton continues to play well. Obviously, it's a transition year with the coaching staff of the baseball program. Was there a point yesterday where you just thought to yourself, Creighton's a pretty good baseball team?
I feel like I've been saying that for the last 4 or 5 years. You know, and even beyond that. I mean, Creighton has won 9 of the last 10 against Nebraska. Will Bolt has not fared very well against the in-state rivals. They're just so like, if they see like a moment to seize the momentum, they do it.
It's an
Whether it's on the mound or at the
opportunistic
plate.
bunch, boy.
And even after the big Silva catch in center field, when that was Creighton's moment, right? They had 2 on, 2 out, tie game, and Silva makes that sensational catch in right center field. Creighton didn't blink.
Nope.
Like, they still came back from that. For some teams that are like, I guess, mentally weak, that there's an effect to that where you're like, man, that was our chance. We're kind of doomed. But they just kind of bucked up, and then they struck in the 7th. They taxed some insurance in the 9th, and they won the game.
Mm-hmm. That's our guy, Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, boys.